Hello and welcome to today's Lunch and Learn. We will be discussing RPS, which is the next version of eCTD. As a quick disclosure, we are recording this presentation and it will be put up on our website. If you are concerned about having your name, question, and of course answer recorded, please disconnect now and I will make sure to email you as soon as it becomes available, probably on Monday. My name is Josh Boutwell. I founded Aquila Solutions in 2010, and since then we've been providing regulatory support, publishing support trainings, regulatory operations to a wide variety of clients. And this training is an effort to make sure everyone keeps abreast of what's changing. So today's topics: what is RPS? Then we'll go over the differences between the current eCTD standard and RPS. Then the major components to RPS, which are distinctly different than eCTD. Finally, some new features, the implementation, and our best guess on the timeline. So what is RPS? Just like eCTD, the most generic name possible, RPS stands for Regulated Product Submission, as opposed to Common Technical Document. It is intended to replace the current standard, and the hope is that this new standard will be flexible enough to allow for medical devices while also providing a mechanism for FDA and EMA and all of the other agencies to communicate back to you through your application. So the hope is you won't get letters in the mail anymore. You'll get updates to your application from the agency. So what are the differences between eCTD and RPS? So eCTD is an XML-based table of contents. It is a list of what's included and its links to that data. And eCTD has a fair amount of flexibility, but in effect, you are intended to read it from Module 1 through Module 5. Obviously, you can skip around, but that's how it's structured. And the best way to think of it is as a book. Your intention is to read the beginning, go to the end, and then you've got the entire story. RPS is a very different system. It's still XML-based, but it describes a group of documents that are then used to describe your data structure. And while eCTD is a book, RPS is a database. You define the content and you define the relationships, and that's what gives you your submission. It's not every document in there necessarily is included. You could send in documents, send up documents, but not actually include them in your submission. It's very, very flexible. So what are the major components to RPS that allows it to be this flexible? So these are the big parts of RPS. Number one, you have a submission unit, which is the PDF. You have a context of use, which in many ways is the leaf. You have a reviewable unit, which is the module. You have submissions, which should be self-explanatory, keywords, and files. Now, a lot of these things don't directly translate, but you can make your best. I'll try to equate it to eCTD as much as possible. So the submission unit. A submission unit is everything necessary for review. And the equivalent is the sequence. I apologize if I said wrong. Yeah, the file obviously is a PDF. The submission unit is a sequence, if I misspoke. And this is, one submission, one unit that the agency will look at. Then we have context of use. These are how the documents are assigned together. For eCTD, you have one leaf which can have one document. In RPS, you have a context of use that can reference as many documents as you want. This is really what gives it so much of the flexibility, is that you can essentially attach documents together without having to physically attach the PDFs. And then you can reference the same content in multiple different locations throughout the application and effectively mix and match your content to present it as you need to in a specific area. Now, the equivalent is the leaf. This is a very nebulous connection. The closest we have to eCTD is the leaf. Now, our reviewable unit, these are the modules or STF if you're looking at a report. This is all the submission units that define one section, one major section of a sequence. And what's interesting is these are going to be pretty much defined by the agency you're going into rather than the ICH. So this, again, is where a lot of flexibility comes from. Instead of having to define modules 2, 3, 4, and 5 so that everyone in the world can probably use them. Now each agency can use this RPS structure and customize every section how they want to see it, in the way they want to see it, that allows them to be as flexible or as static as they need to be. Then the submission is the collection of contexts of use. And this is really how everything is tracked together. So in this case, it's the index.xml and the regional XMLs. This lets your agency follow everything and how you communicate what you're doing and what they want you to do to the application. Then finally, then we have a file. This is there is no real correlation. It's the PDF. It's part of the component of the leaf XML in eCTD. In RPS, it is instead you submit a file into your application, and the file is a standalone entity. It doesn't have to attach to anything else. Now, in order to be able to use that file in your application, you have to link it with a context of use. But you can put the same file up in 5 different ways, and linking it, or put the same file and link it in a bunch of different contexts of use, and relate it to other files directly, rather than having to have as many complex links and unusual phrasing and things like that in your documents themselves. You can actually combine the documents. Now, another thing that's very interesting are keywords. The equivalent to eCTD is metadata. This is your manufacturer, your indication, your drug substance. But unlike eCTD, these are far more flexible, and you can actually add any keyword you want, plus the agency will define their own. And this allows you to link, to essentially do searches through your application and easily find information on any part of the RPS from a file on up. It's, again, one of the things that adds some real flexibility to the system so that you can do medical devices and you can actually easily reference everything despite the complexity of assembling it. So this is just a general overview of an RPS. You have your submission unit, so one sequence, or one application. You have your submission. You have a submission, which is how everything is hooked together. You've got your keywords, where each one is defined, and you've got your files. Now, context of use can refer to keywords, as many keywords as you want. And so each context of use is one collection of file, one set of leaves, one leaf. Then, of course, you also have to link files to your context of use. So this context of use here, context of use 1, looks like it is just referring to file 1. Or sorry, it's referring to file 1 and file 3. This one is doing file 2 and file 3, and context of use 3 is referring to all 3 of them. You could actually do this in any order you want. And so this is really what you're looking at. So now so each submission unit is one sequence. And the RPS application has multiple submission units. That, of course, just like in eCTD now, you can refer to to anything else in any other historical submission. And actually with RPS, you can actually go back and adjust things to refer, historical things to refer to future things. It's very, very complex, but again, extremely flexible. So in this case, this reviewable unit is now referring to this one, as well as the files that were submitted here and the keywords submitted here. It gets, like you can see, it gets very, very complicated, but I hope you can envision the flexibility that this sort of system allows you, and this flexibility is really what's necessary in order to handle medical devices that can be anything from an acupuncture needle to an MRI machine to just a pure piece of software. So what are some of the new features? It has a minimal DTD definition. So as you may be aware, with eCTD, they have very extensive DTD and style sheets. These define what is permitted in the eCTD. If it's not in the DTD, it can't be in the eCTD. With RPS, the DTD really just defines what keyword submission units, the files and all that, how those are presented rather than how they're used. And so that means that there's no fundamental structure defined by the system. This, of course, means there's absolute flexibility. Again, no required naming or files or folder structures in the standard itself. By that I mean ICH doesn't say it has to be M1, M2, M3, M4, M5. It just says it has to be referenced somewhere. And so the FDA could come in and say, I don't want it to be M5, I want it to be clinical studies. And so long as it follows the folder naming convention, as in lowercase no spaces, there's no problem whatsoever. And the FDA can define that very, very easily without affecting any other region. There is the option of regulatory authority response messages. So essentially, the regulatory authority can send you one of these, a submission unit, which then gets integrated into your application. And because of all the keywords and the flexibility, it can reference different documents. Now, it's most likely going to be very simple submissions rather than these more complex ones. It'll be effectively a cover letter with talking about which submission, but it still allows for direct manipulation of your application by the FDA as a means of communication. Now, some updated features. The MD5, which is the checksum, is being retired. This is because there were actually some security vulnerabilities discovered in it. Nothing that is likely to compromise anything, but it's known now. It is theoretically possible to predict how an MD5 would change based off of the changing content. So with that in mind, while MD5 is still technically possible to use, they strongly recommend different checksum technologies called SHA-1 or SHA-256. Similar sort of concept, just a different system. The Leaf ID, which before the sponsor had ultimate control over, is now a UUID, which has a standard format. It's much, much longer, much, much more random. But the reason for this is absolutely every single element, every single keyword, every file, every unit has their own ID now. And this, having a universal standard, helps to prevent any files from using the same ID across submissions. So let's talk about implementation. The major system updates. So this is just general advice on, based on the history of the FDA as they have changed, integrated new technology. So you'll want to contact your vendor at least 1 year before RPS implementation. If you have an internal publishing system, you will absolutely need to upgrade it. It will not be compatible with eCTD. You'll need to upgrade your workflows. RPS, unlike eCTD, requires a ridiculous amount of pre-planning your submission. If you don't, you will sacrifice all the benefits of RPS but still have all the difficulties, all the hassles of the new standard. Again, RPS is essentially a database. If you don't think of it like this and you instead still think of it like a book, it will cost a huge amount of time to manage it, and it could even lead to miscommunications with the agency, which is, honestly, it is a disaster. So this means your regulatory publisher gets some extra status in your organization. It's a much more technical job than it was even before. And again, because of the nature of RPS, you will have a lot of training involved. Remember now, medical devices, which are about 50% of the market, will have a pure electronic format and will have effectively no experience with it. The e-file right now is not the same as eCTD even a little bit. And so the medical device companies will need a lot of support to come on board. So what's our timeline look like? You do have time. This is not a thing that's going to happen tomorrow. They've been working on this standard for better part of a decade, and it'll be several years before it's even possible for you to try to use it. So the prediction is in 2016, the FDA implementation guide will be approved. So that means, right now, actually as of last week, the ICH moved on to phase 2B of the finalization of RPS, which is essentially industry comments. Once that has been approved, which is expected midway through this year, the FDA will be able to implement their own guide. Once that is done, you can assume 6 months, minimum 6 months to review and approve it, and then probably a pilot project for 12 to 18 months. So you can really assume after approval of the or after submission of the implementation guide, it'll be about 2 years. So RPS may be required as soon as 2018. Yes, you have time. No, you don't want to wait until the end of 2017 to figure it out. So at this time, are there any questions?
Chronic kidney disease. Yeah, it'll still be your group. So maybe it's your group. I mean, I say your group, your division, and maybe you're just a few.
Are there any questions? Well, thank you for joining. Our next training will be on the first in the series of publishing methods. We are going to discuss an enterprise system. These are the large systems that are designed to come with everything and the kitchen sink, as far as lab bench to consumer tracking of documents for publishing. And we'll go over what exactly it is, how you might integrate the system into your organization, and we'll go over some advantages and disadvantages of the system, this type of system. We aren't recommending any particular system. This is just a general class of systems. Now, this is going to be held on March 13th, and I hope you will be able to join us 1 p.m. to 1:30. Again, thank you for attending, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them now or send us an email. I did just get a message, is presentation slide available soon? I uploaded them to the WebEx page, so they should be available then there. I will include them with the training session when we get it up on our website, which will likely be sometime either very late today or more likely Monday.
There you go, Sean.
Yeah. Is that electronically? Yeah.
Are there any additional questions?
Yeah, actually. I copied it out of trying to figure out how much you got. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just send you that file.
Thank you, sir.